Hey, aloha, love tribe. Welcome to the show. I have somebody here with me who serendipitously is doing magical work that I happen to be doing on my personal journey. And it has been ultra transformative. And this woman here is the host of Unhypnotized. And she's going to talk to us today about 5 ways to unhypnotize our minds. This is Heather Keys. Welcome, Heather. Woohoo!
Thank you so much for having me, DJ Valerie Below.
Woohoo! And thanks, Dave Bradley, for introducing us. He was just like, you need to meet Heather, Val. You guys are going to click. And of course, it's like Velcro.
It's just a match made in heaven. I remember from that first moment that we had a little Zoom, you were at the shopping mall. I was just like,
I
I was
know,
like, oh
right?
yeah, we're good. We're good.
I know. It was so great. I know. I was getting gosh, that was in August because I was getting my son ready for him to go to Portugal for 2 months. And we were getting him, a
Mm.
little phone. And I'm like, I'm not missing this call. I'm going to sit in the middle of the mall with my little earbuds and talk to you. So thank you so much. So how's it going? You just got back from somewhere special. Tell everybody where you just got back from.
Yes, I was in Victoria, British Columbia at the Learning BTC, so a
Nice.
Bitcoin conference on the west coast of Canada. And I guess even since I've been back, people have been like, "Oh, was that for beginners?" And then I didn't even really click on that like while I was there because I think in the Bitcoin space, especially everyone's learning and there's people of all like lengths of time that they've been orange pill since.
Totally.
And like I said, I sent out an email about this to my peeps too and said, like, I'm bringing that energy that creates worlds back with me,
Yay.
and that's the way I think of like us connecting. And that's the way I think of like Bitcoin conferences and like the community because it's so healing. Like it's so high vibe. And it's just like, it's something that you leave re energized from instead of drained.
Totally. I know. I always feel like I get so sad when I have to leave the conferences. Like I go through a couple weeks of like separation anxiety and depression a little, and I'm not going to say no to going to the events because they're so powerful and fuel filled with love and hope and wisdom and strength and skills and possibility and
Mm.
great connections. But it's like, oh my gosh, these are like the most cool, wonderful, strong people on earth who are doing great things, and using their time, treasure, and talent and their gifts and everything to truly make the world a better place. And it's like it's the most uncompetitive place I've ever been,
Mhm.
and it just makes me feel like it's home. Like Burning Man is kind of like home to me too. And so is Bitcoin conferences or just
Yeah.
anything Bitcoin. Tell me a key takeaway that you had. And then I'm going to go into like who you are and your background and everything. I
Sure.
just want to kind of celebrate that. I know that
Oh,
was a big endeavor
yeah.
for Tristan and the team.
Yeah, go wherever you want. I mean, those guys are awesome. They did a
Mhm.
great job. Uh, and I think it is really valuable to just notice the low mood that comes from like being in such an aligned, like
Mhm.
I'm home type of community. But I think we can just like keep tapping into what we know exists, especially like talking more with other Bitcoiners once we're home and doing
Yeah.
other things. I think for me, the biggest takeaway was, well, it's a little bit of a selfish thing because, I'm always so thrilled when people really resonate with like the conversation and the theme of the podcast.
Yeah.
Like I get so energized when people are like, "Oh my gosh, like that we need that conversation. There's
Mhm.
such a space for that here, like in the Bitcoin space for that conversation," and just seeing people get lit up
Yeah.
about talking about the mind and consciousness and money and the intersection with Bitcoin.
I know a lot of people in my audience, we're creatives, we're entrepreneurs, we're coaches, we're musicians, we're podcasters, and a lot of folks are still just like, how does money relate to this, changing the world thing? And I'm like, I
Mhm.
didn't really think it did in the past. Is I always thought, money was the root of evil and all that stuff was all
Ah,
the programming. And we'll
yeah.
talk about all our programming, obviously, in the show. Um, but once I started understanding like the essence that it's the glue that holds all this life together and all of possibilities together. And if you've got this cancerous soil filled glue or soil, versus something that's beautiful and nourishing and regenerative for all of us to participate in, it creates different levels of opportunity or different levels of manipulation and greed and corruption, and
Mhm.
until those things came to light, I couldn't, it just was like, we can't ever get our projects forward to the degree that we want to as change makers if we are building on this toxic soil, and um, so I think
Exactly.
it's super duper important that people consider, money and the mind and consciousness and peace and love are like all intertwined, they're not some separate siloed things.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk about you, beautiful, and how on earth did you go from uh, being, a sovereign mind hypnotherapist, healer, to getting Bitcoin in your world. And let's talk about both and how they're intersecting for you in these days.
Oh, wow, I
Mhm.
know, and I'm happy to see I'm, like, streaming on X for the first time, and it's
Yay! Is it
working.
working?
Yep.
Yay, it's
Yeah, hi, everyone.
working.
Oh my gosh, yeah, so I guess, like, the short answer is that I, like many healers and people that feel called to help other people, uh, self-healed, was on a journey of self-healing, and one of my favorite things to talk about these days is just about how self-healing is still controversial when
Mm.
it should just be the norm. Like, of course, our bodies are designed to heal ourselves and give us symptoms and wisdom for the directions that we need, but I also can see how it wasn't until, like, 12 years after I started my healing journey that I found hypnosis, and then
Mm.
hypnotherapy gave me that opportunity to be one with myself in that place of, like, relaxation and stillness, to hear those messages coming from my body, coming from my heart, coming from my soul instead of coming from my mind or
Can
my
you
head.
help the audience understand,
Yes,
just so people, if they're
yeah,
they're
sure.
confused, if they think hypnosis or hypnotherapy is making you cluck like a chicken on stage,
Oh, sure.
let's talk about what hypnotherapy and hypnosis is versus what it's not, and how
Great,
it
yeah.
relates to therapeutic uses versus entertainment purposes kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. There's still such a what I think is just a programming about the misconceptions of hypnosis to keep people afraid of it, like somehow I'm in control of your mind or the
Mhm.
hypnotist is the authority of the mind. Whereas, well, people could be suggestible in that state. What really happens when it's like done right is the person that's in hypnosis has access to their subconscious mind. So it has access to the imagery and the information that will be right for them. So for just a quick example, because sometimes I know that sounds abstract, it's like if I'm just like, say I'm putting someone in hypnosis and I'm like counting them down and I'm just like giving their subconscious mind direction to just show them anything that they need or release or clear anything or anything unknown or known no longer needed. It's amazing the imagery that comes up to them. Like it could be like Mike Tyson if the guy was really resonating with Mike Tyson at the moment, right? Or it could be like a phoenix rising from the ashes, or it could even take them back to like a younger version of themselves where they're seeing something. And so I think that with hypnosis, it is just a state of relaxation, but I'll also say like it really is important to find that type of practitioner that is like what we're talking about. It's not coming from a like, I'm the authority over you, but I'll help you tap into your inner authority. You know, if that makes sense, because there's still a lot of that in the industry where I'm going to tell you how to act and what to eat and what to do, and that will cure you.
Totally. And I think, and let's talk a little bit about the subconscious so people can
Sure.
understand how the subconscious is such a driver, and it drives most of our decisions and how we operate. A lot of people think, and I was included in this number of the majority of people think like, oh, I'm in control. My mind is in control. My consciousness, I know what's going on and I know right from wrong. And I'm making this decision
Mhm.
and I'm driving the bus. Um, it wasn't until 8 years ago that I discovered I was molested by my uncle when I was 4 years old. And I didn't have that memory. It was gone. It was trapped in here because my mind, my subconscious needed to protect me so I could, move forward in my life. And so, but it wasn't until I was doing EMDR and then I started doing hypno and all these other things, but it was something that like came out and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is what's been causing me so much distress. This has been causing me a lot of anxiety. This has been something that's like been this like little undercurrent of fire inside of me, that I was using substances and other things to try to put out and not even knowing that it was being caused by this
God.
old thing." And so, let's talk a little bit about the subconscious and how it's really important that we start to understand what it is and how we can get in relationship with our subconscious.
That's a really good point because generally speaking, most of the time, say someone comes to me and asks me, if hypnotherapy can help them, they tend to, like, in the logical mind, kind of think they know what's going on or think they know what they need, which
Mhm.
is okay. It's just 9.8 percent, 9.8 times out of 10, it's not that,
Yeah.
because the subconscious is that data bank, because the subconscious really does have, the imprints that we took on, the paradigms that we took on unconsciously, unknowingly, and unwillingly in a lot of cases, just because of our experiences and our events in our lives. And sometimes we don't need to let it come out. But one thing I will say that I've been noticing a lot lately with my clients is that it's really the freeing of suppressed memories and emotions that sets them free,
Yeah.
like resolves the condition. Like, yeah, they come back to me and they're like, oh my gosh, like if you told me I was going to have to feel all this, I might not have said yes.
Mhm.
But thank you for helping me do that.
Yeah, I think it can be intimidating,
Mhm.
because we don't wanna relive old traumatic experiences, obviously, and we wanna move through them in a way that's safe, and obviously, studying a lot of trauma work, they say the issues are in the tissues, and so literally our bodies are storing these subconscious memories, and it can cause dis-ease in many different ways, and so we can have physical dis-ease, and we can have, obviously, mental dis-ease, which leads to emotional and spiritual dis-ease, and so, um, I think it's important to consider, like you said, making sure that there's a lot of trust with the person that you're working with, and knowing that they're not trying to
Mhm.
put their will on you. Like, I have the answer. It's like, as any therapist, or a coach, our job is to be the Yoda, and the guide. We're not the one who's going to say, you must do this and all that. And it's because that it
Mhm.
disempowers the client and that disempowers the person. And so, um, as far as like feeling the feelings, right? Let's talk about the 5 ways that we were, talking about being unhypnotized. Let's talk about what it is, in your context to be hypnotized in, this uh,
Yeah.
this realm and how you started this podcast and then we'll go through the 5 areas.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will just say about this sort of like, the diagnosis, I do just want to say, like, I do think sometimes that the only reason that we need to go back to a moment to get relief or heal a certain
Mhm.
condition is because that's also like kind of programmed into us with like modern psychology, which I think of as fiat psychology sometimes.
Mhm.
And so I think, like, if enough times we're told, like, "Oh, we've gotta go back," or "It's in the tissues," or "It's been imprinted," then that's why that works so well, because I can usually see someone, usually when I see someone and I think, "Okay, how can we unhypnotize them?" It's like I can see that they don't have the problem they think they have.
Right.
Right? But if they really believe that the problem is because of a past event, well, then I can take them in hypnosis to that past event, heal that child within, and then they will be free because they believed that that's what they needed to be free. So I'm just going to put that in there for a moment because I don't want to also create more beliefs. around what we have to do to be free.
Yeah, and I think and
Yeah.
that's the deal. It's like we assign meaning to things, right?
Yeah.
And that's I think what we do consciously and subconsciously. There's a in my therapist wall, she has there's a pipe on the wall, and she's like, "What is that?" I'm like, "It's a pipe." And she's like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's a pipe." And she's like, "It's a picture of a pipe." And
Mhm.
so she and I'm just like, "Okay, keep going," and she's just like, "This is how our minds think that there's all these big things that are out there that are and we assign them these big meanings, and the reality is a lot of the times they're memories. Maybe they're not as big and scary as we thought, and so it's up to us to redefine what the meaning is of an
Mhm.
experience or of a thing or any of it. And so we get to take that ownership back and recognize, that those are past images, and we can look at them and reassign them new meaning, in a
Yeah,
way
the
that's
Course in
powerful.
Miracles, the
Yeah.
Course in Miracles.
Nice. Oh, good. I
That's
haven't
the
done A
Course
Course in
in Miracles.
Miracles.
Like, this glass of water, say someone gave me this glass that meant a lot to me, This glass has the meaning that I give it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's I think that's with anything, like, "Oh, I broke up with this person. It's the end of the world." It's like, actually, it's the beginning of a new one that's gonna be better.
Oh, yeah,
Which
right,
meaning do I wanna adopt into my world? And
right.
so we have so much power that I think we forget. And so I think do you think like being hypnotized in the words, in the way that you're speaking is just forgetting the truth or being just programmed from the external sources, whether it's religion, society, our schools, our families, our friends, obviously the media, like, do you feel like we're hypnotized under those forces as a
Yeah,
society, as a culture, as individuals?
absolutely. I mean, becoming unhypnotized is more of a subtraction than it is an addition.
Yeah.
So it's really letting the things fall away that are just keeping us from our innate wisdom and health and well-being. And that's mental health too. So that's why it kind of came to me. I think this was probably I rebranded my corporation over COVID because became so clear to me that I really wasn't hypnotizing anyone, but I was unhypnotizing them from whatever
Yep.
is keeping them down or holding them back. And it really just evolved so perfectly once I kind of came into the Bitcoin space and people just got it.
And so how did you how what's that bridge? How did you get into the Bitcoin
Yeah.
space and connecting the
So
dots here? And then we'll come back to the five ways.
great, great. Yeah, we were already touching on them, so it'll be perfect to
Yeah,
wrap it in a nice little bow.
cool.
Yeah. So I guess moving to Calgary is what really was the impetus because Dale, my Regina pal from QuickBit, he was having a table at the Bitcoin Rodeo, part of the Bitcoin Rodeo last year, like 2023, and was like, "You should come. I think you'll really like it. Come with, work the table." So then I went there and I just like loved it, loved the vibe. And then I was in the first SAT market. So we had like the local market for
Cool.
cash and Bitcoin. And then just met, like, that's when I met, even like spent more time with like Dave Bradley and Ben Perrin and just like all the awesome community that they're building in Calgary. And then there was like another SAT market. And then I was really geeky going to like the YYC meetups. And like, I was just like, give me all the Bitcoin stuff I can take. And then this year at the Bitcoin Rodeo, launching the podcast on, yeah, on
Amazing. But
Coinbase.
what was your, like, entry
Oh,
point other than your friend saying, "Here, come here?" Like,
yeah.
how did you get an aha moment that, like, "Whoa, Bitcoin is this sovereign money to go along with your sovereign mind, uh, philosophy of living?"
Good question. Great question. Because I was orange pilled like a few years before that.
Okay.
But it wasn't until I was like talking to Bitcoiners on a more regular basis that I was like, oh my God, this is one of the people I want to talk to because they already are unhypnotized, at least on one level.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
like, at least one level they're unhypnotized. It's to like the money system and fiat, like they're already unhypnotized. So I'm just like, this is my community. And then, of course, the more that I had this conversation and the more I saw just how unhypnotized many Bitcoiners are in other areas of their life, never mind being like a creator from collective consciousness for solutions like I am. It
Mhm.
was just such a perfect fit, and I'll tell you something funny just to wrap this up. It's like I realized this at learning Bitcoin because sometimes I was getting a little bit of like people being like, "Oh, Heather, like you've just got the excitement of a newbie," kind of like that vibe. So what I realized is like I don't know if you've ever seen the 3 Stages of Love by Ram Dass.
I haven't seen that, but Ram
Yeah,
Dass is obviously my number
yeah,
one teacher. Okay, the 3
right?
stages of love. Okay,
Yeah.
let's hear it.
So I'm in stage 1 with Bitcoin, which is infatuation, you know? Like, I am falling in love with Bitcoin. I am totally got the chemicals. I'm falling in love with Bitcoin and I'm infatuated. And then the second step is choice, where you choose love. Like, you choose to
Mm,
love the person. You decide, like, I wanna be in this relationship, even if sometimes you break my heart.
mhm,
And I've had that a little, like, I'm still like, but I'm really good at coming back from heartbreak. So I have been brokenhearted and scammed by Bitcoin. And so, and then the third stage, which is like where we can all get to after choosing Bitcoin, and some of you are already there, which is like you've made the choice, you're in a committed relationship with Bitcoin. And through that committed relationship, you experience the divine again. Like you come back
mm,
to the infatuation and love, but like through your own divinity and devotion.
love it. Oh, I love it. Oh my god, Ram Dass, like, changed my life when I was
Same,
19. Totally. Oh, man. I loved
same.
his, uh just constantly like, oh, my neuroses, all this stuff. He was just so, not that he was trying to be self-deprecating necessarily, but he was so humble in his humanity and not acting like I'm the
Mm.
guru or any of it. I know that he went through that transformation from being, Mr. Professor all the way in, to his whole journey. But I think it's like, he's definitely somebody he's in my grid, in my heart. He's up on my wall right here. I should actually, I'm going to put him behind over here.
Do it.
I'm moving you because I can see him here, but only on the show. You can't see him on the show, so I'll move my buddy,
Oh,
and Maharaji, of course.
yes.
And so, okay, so that's incredible. And you know what? Zen mind, beginner's mind. And so every day, I hope to be excited about waking up and jumping out of bed for whatever I'm doing. I don't want to just get into some old fuddy-duddy mode, whether it's music, whether it's being a mom, whether it's being, a Bitcoiner, anything. Like
Mhm.
I always want to be stoked. I don't want to get into some boring rut. That vibration, that frequency, that energy is fuel, to keep us going. So why not? Like, let's hold on. That's good stuff.
I know it's good. I was very happy to realize it too. I'm like, I'm kind of fine staying in the honeymoon stage.
I like honeymoons. Let's go on them every day with our mission and something that fuels our our vision for the future in life. I think it's really, really powerful. So let's talk about the 5 steps, the 5 keys, Heather keys, the 5 keys to unhypnotizing our mind. So let's talk about number 1. You were talking about awareness of that you might be hypnotized, and then also just understanding you are like that you might be, and then the recognition that oh, I am.
Yeah, that's kind of the dark night of the soul in a sense. It's the awareness that causes you to realize like your involuntary actions or your thinking that tends to drag you down or causes you to self-sabotage or whatever it is. It's just that realization that you might have taken on some beliefs that aren't really making you happy or healthy.
And are
That's
they
all.
even yours?
Yeah.
That's the thing. Are they your authentic beliefs, or do you just believe them because you were told that that's the right thing to do? Or however it might have worked from all these external influences, like we say. I wrote an article called The Bitcoiner's Dilemma, and it talks a lot about, when your worldview gets shattered, because once you start to get this truth, it's like, uh-oh, this is going to have to go. And then the relationships are going to have to change. We'll get to that. That's step number 4.
It's
But
true.
it's very mentally destabilizing and emotionally destabilizing when you realize, when you wake up and go, fuck, I've been in the matrix,
Yeah.
and I've been lied to and I've been duped, and so that feeling, like, do you find with the clients that you're working with who are, they think they are coming in for one thing and then the whole new thing comes up, it's like, oh no, it's this, like, how do you help them through that collapse, that crumble?
Yeah, that's a great awareness. I love talking to you. I think we talked about this a bit on my episode with you on the podcast too, of just even, when you realize like you sort of took on this hustle culture, say even with your business of helping or healing people, and how
Yeah.
unsustainable that is once you see, how hypnotized we can become. And I don't know, lately I've been thinking, I think that's all I do in one-on-one now is just help people through the dark night of the soul,
Yeah.
because sometimes it's become really apparent to me how many, especially here in Canada, like many people are on, if not just one, but more than one antidepressant or anti-anxiety.
Yep.
And one of the, tough awarenesses or awakening that happens is like they actually didn't even realize they could come off of them.
Mm.
And then that's just a whole thread. Like, once you start pulling on that thread, like not only that, but they're likely the cause of the anxiety.
Oh boy. Yeah.
It's a whole thread. So that's just one example of like one area. But I think it's really important for people to be able to process and release, like once they see something that is no longer serving them,
Yeah.
so that like what they know now can be embodied,
Totally.
but that's probably the next.
Yeah, that's gonna go number 3. So let's talk about our consumption, the consumption model, number 2, right? And so you were just mentioning consumption of, obviously, prescription pills. We consume social media, we consume mainstream media, we consume what our, the guiltiness of, your family told us, all the things that we've
Ah,
consumed into our bodies, our minds, our ears, our mouths, um, let's talk about, how does your consumption model impact how hypnotized or unhypnotized you are?
oh yeah, it kind of came to mind like you are what you eat.
Yes, exactly, dude. Yup.
Like you are what you eat, you are what you listen to, you are what you like surround yourself by.
Yeah. And I think, like, fear is obviously the number one bestseller of any, product or service. Oh my God, you're not good enough. You don't, you're wrinkly, you're this, you don't have the car, you're not at this status, la la la, and so the fear that you're gonna get left behind, triggers something, I think, primally about us as humans, where we want to feel like we're a part of something bigger than us, because it's a safety mechanism, belonging to a tribe. And so when we feel
Yeah.
like we don't have enough or do enough or whatever, and then we're going to get left out, that definitely triggers like a survival, like, uh-oh, I better kick into gear. And so I'm sure that kicks in a lot of adrenaline and cortisol and all of the hormones that make us sick, the neurotransmitters and stuff. And so,
Yeah,
how
absolutely.
let's talk about that. Like, how,
Yeah.
like, it's important that we're educated, obviously, about what's going on in the world, but it's really easy to get in the doom loops, of any
Yeah.
of this stuff. So how do you support people, with their consumption models?
Yeah, and that's a really good focus to bring to light because we saw, especially over the last 4 years, just how the fear of being ostracized from the community caused
Mhm.
people to go against their own morals
Yeah.
in the decisions that they made and in the way they treated other people.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really good for us to have compassion, for how we act when we're fearful, and then also recognizing if we are consuming something. Like if you're consuming something that's causing you to be fearful of your neighbor or going outside and breathing in the air,
Yeah.
or whatever it is, or even about the future. Sometimes even Bitcoin content can be really scary about the future.
Yeah.
So I think it's like part of it is like, not letting your mind be a wild animal,
Yeah.
like recognizing like you have autonomy over your own mind, even if it's like giving you an anxious feeling. You could pause and at least recognize that whatever you just are thinking about or whatever you consume that caused you to feel like this is likely untrue, in the sense like, yeah, nobody wants to think negatively about the future. And I think that's why we love consuming Bitcoin content, because it really is about a solution.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the freedom starts first in the mind.
Yeah.
Like the consumption is like really helpful to limit if you don't have freedom over your own mind. And then also, if you notice when I think about this or when I read about this, like it really makes me feel bad. I mean, then maybe find something else to read or go for
Totally.
a walk in nature.
Like, I want to ask you,
Sure.
define freedom over your mind. What does that
Mhm.
mean?
To me, freedom over your mind is understanding how thought works and how you're experiencing thought, and understanding that just because you have a negative response to something that you're thinking doesn't mean it's true.
Okay.
Right? Because
Yeah.
even this whole model that we were talking about, regression, and don't get me wrong, I mean, I've been a regression hypnotist for like 13 years, like, but I just understand like why it works, because there is this model that like, oh, if I'm thinking about something negatively from the past and it's giving me a negative feeling,
Mhm.
then it must be that I need to heal that thing from the past to feel better.
Got it.
But that's not really true if you have autonomy over your own mind and you recognize that a low mood, like a thought that comes with a low mood, has zero truth to it.
Yeah.
It's it's irrelevant.
What do you mean a thought that comes with a low mood has zero truth to it?
So, yeah, so for example, like that, like say I'm feeling bad. Say I'm feeling like bad today, right? And I'm just not feeling good. I'm just feeling like I'm not getting stuff done on my to-do list. And then my mind starts going, oh, I should have did this before, or like I can't believe I haven't done this yet. I should be like doing this, or I should have done this. Or this happens a lot with like, say, people that want to lose weight and they're just like, they're just so stuck in like what they didn't do to get to here.
Mhm.
Or even the trauma paradigm, right? Of like, oh, because this happened to me in the past, I'm unable to feel better now. But all of that is just thoughts, because
Okay.
the mind is deciding this is why I feel bad.
Got it. And so feeling bad is a choice.
It's not a choice. You're going to feel bad if you're going to feel bad. The freedom comes from being careful of what you identify to the reason why you're feeling bad, because again, like this is like here, right? This is the analytical conscious mind where there are no solutions and no real connection to the imagery and the imprints and whatever you might be processing or just feeling as a result. And so we have to be really careful to not get caught up in the analytical mind of like, what is wrong with me?
Yeah,
Right?
that's a good point. What is wrong with
Yeah.
me? I think a lot of us, I don't know, self-deprecation is a big thing that I know I've
Yeah.
experienced in my life, and
Yeah.
self-flagellation, and it's like, "Why are you thinking this way? Do the blah, blah, blah," and I beat myself up a lot, and I'm definitely learning to have a lot more
Perfect example.
self-compassion and a lot more, uh, grace and patience and I'm doing the best I can with what I have. I think every human is at the moment. I mean, I hope we all are, but I believe we are. And so I think that's an important distinction too,
It
is like that we've got these different parts that live in our operating system, I call it, that some of them are protector, some of them are the critic, some of them are the playful child, um,
Mhm.
and so I feel like, parts work is very important to do and integrate into our lives, because it's like, who's holding the mic right now? Is
Well,
it
it's
your
so yeah,
yeah,
it's
is it
so
your
freeing.
yeah, so I don't know, I think it's a very, very important thing to start understanding, like, because if we can't know ourselves, like, what is it? Know thyself is, like, one of the most important things that we can do, and if we're not experts on our operating system and how we work, like, how can we expect, first of all, people in our lives to understand us and be patient, or navigate the complexities of our own selves, and then how can we actually be effective? How can we be the most effective versions of ourselves if we are not experts on ourselves? And so deep inquiry for our whole lives is very important, I think, because if,
Mhm.
when you became a mother, were you the same woman you were prior to motherhood? Did your
Yeah.
thinking shift? Like, I know mine sure did, like,
Mhm.
I didn't know what organic was before I was a mom. I was like, "Oh, organic is actually kind of important in this GMO stuff. Maybe I don't want my kids having," like, all
Definitely.
your stuff starts to shift when you have different life experiences. So to
Mhm.
think you know yourself at one point is, you it's one point in your life. You have to keep digging deep and getting curious and being an investigator, and
Mm.
the good and the bad, the shadow and the light, right?
Yeah, and it's like if to really be unhypnotized, because that's the thing, it's so freeing to understand that, like, you're just a human being feeling something, and there's not a reason why, and it doesn't even matter, and knowing the reason why wouldn't change the fact that you feel.
Yeah.
You know? It doesn't change anything, and then being unhypnotized is like, you just become aware, like we said, those first 2 steps are so massive because say, for example, like, I wrote this whole email, and then I tweeted a bit about being scammed, and it started a bigger conversation that I am gonna make an episode about, but what I really learned um is that I think it was Adam from Bitcoin Well, he made a comment on my post that said, because I was like, "Oh my god, I just feel so dumb, like, I'm the hypnotist and I got hypnotized."
Mm.
And then, and then he was like, "Oh, but the fiat programming is, like, so multi-layered."
Yeah.
And then after he said that, I started to really look at my thinking around money and, like, my financial paradigms, and I was like, whoa. It is really even more multi-layered than I imagined, so I'm so glad that that happened to me because without that happening to me, and without having those feelings of, like, whatever, discomfort, I would have never took that journey into myself and realized, "Ooh, oh, there's a lot that is connected to fiat programming."
It is, and I think this is where, Seb Bunny's book, I think we might have talked about that on your
Mm,
show, and just how the whole family unit is programmed because of money and scarcity and mom and dad not being home or mom and dad getting divorced or all the things, that are
mm,
impacting how we're growing and how we're getting, uh, formed, hypnotized, programmed, however we wanna, use those words. I think it's so, so important. Let me ask you this. So let's go into this third part about, so the first step, awareness. You might be, and you are getting out of the matrix. Second step, observe your consumption model. Third step, we're talking about professional support and professional help. So
mm,
you just named something that I think is very, very important, especially for a lot of healers and coaches and people who are out there as change makers. We don't have all the answers and we're not all perfect, and so to sit and think like, oh, you're going to go to somebody and they need to be pristine, and that's ridiculous, because that's nobody operates that way. And so um how do you suggest people go about investigating and vetting and being discerning when they find professional support, whether it's through hypnotherapy, whether it's EMDR, whether it's somatic work, whether it's psychedelics? How do you how do you guide people to make sure that they're finding reputable people that are, you know, uh, going to be very, very safe first and foremost?
I mean, great question, especially in the days of like, get your certification in 3 days on the
Right.
internet.
Mhm.
Number one, the number one thing I see that causes me concern is just practitioners making diagnoses.
Mm.
That's my less favorite thing is like, because especially without really, I'm fine if that's their process and there's like a process they go through to help understand or help the person see what they might be needing help with.
Mhm.
That's one thing. But I think to just like, say, to just kind of look at someone and say, oh, your heart chakra is out of balance, or, oh, this is because of your past trauma.
Mm.
It's the same thing when they didn't come to the insight themselves. So that's something I'm very cautious of, because the problem with that is like it might be that the person sees that for them, but we have to remember that the practitioner or the healer or the coach is seeing that from their level of consciousness.
Right.
So even if it's correct, it's not going to be effective if the client or the patient doesn't see it for themselves or see what they need to see for themselves from their level of consciousness. And that's why we have so many people very educated going around as, patients or clients going, I know what's wrong with me, but I can't do it. And that's because they didn't embody it, like, they didn't see it for themselves. So I know that this might make it difficult, but I would say always find someone that you resonate with, that you
Mhm.
feel comfortable with. Like, it doesn't matter so much, honestly, the certifications, unless, like, that gives you more trust. But it's really about, do I trust this person and their energy? And I think how we build trust, I actually wrote, like, I published a chapter in a book about this, about like how to hold transformational space.
Mm.
And it's really about this. So I could even share a free download for your viewers if
That
you
would be
want,
great.
and for your list of the ebook, because I felt it so important that we have this conversation about how to hold space. And then the people also considering who to choose could read that too and go, oh, right. Like, there is a vetting process. And I think the number one process is they're using their gifts to help you as the client realize and feel through things and see things for yourself. And I might be biased because I know that hypnosis is just the queen at helping people do that, or like a trance state just makes that easier. But a
Mhm.
lot of people go into like a trance state in like a consult or a conversation or an energy work or a reflexology or a massage. They can, especially if the practitioner relaxes and just lets them feel.
Mhm.
Right? Like, there's a lot of insight that can be had, and you can always point to things, but I think that's number one. It's like really be on the lookout for someone that is interested in pulling it out of you instead of telling you.
Oh, I love that. That is a monster nugget right there.
Yeah, that's
Um,
another Pell podcast.
I know. Well, because you just think about, like psychiatry versus this type of work. Psychiatry, you must have a diagnosis in order, you got to put it, what is the DSM-5 something, and you have to have a little code and you have to label the person, and then you can do your insurance claims, and then you can give them something from your script pad for the day. And so it's such a fucked up system, because there's studies done. I'm reading a book called The Coaching Habit right now, and he was talking about, and I believe this is true because this is why I created this 11x love model, this love method, is when you call somebody a name, doesn't matter what it is. You're awesome. You're great. You're an addict. You're depressed. You have this. You're whatever. Any of it. You're a criminal. There was a study done with people who were uh, getting out of jail, and so when they did these two groups, and one was labeled "you're criminals," and other people were labeled, "you're recovering and you're going to get whatever." The people who got labeled as criminals repeated the offense more regularly than the people who were
Yeah.
labeled like you're in recovery or whatever it was, whatever the positive label was. And so labels matter tremendously because we adopt those identities, and so when I was doing 12-step program, 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago, after I got, out of my divorce and out of rehab, I was like, oh, I don't like calling myself an alcoholic because I'm somebody who misused alcohol because I was depressed and I had all these other things going on in my life. And it turned into, an addiction for a period of time. But I don't identify as an alcoholic or an addict. I had an addiction and I had the problem, but that's not my identity. Like I am love. I am God's child, And so
Exactly.
I am light, and that's what I identify as. So if you label me as she's clinically depressed or something, it's like, no, I have depression sometimes, or I experience depression sometimes, but
Yeah.
I am not depression.
Yes.
And
Oh, I
so
love that
I
you
think
said
that and so part of, why I'm the vibe goddess. It's like when I get on stage to DJ, if I'm Val, I'm like, well, it's going to be good. But if I'm the vibe goddess, it's going to be fucking great, because I embody this beautiful identity. And so to me, I think it's so important that we identify as who we wish to be, and our highest selves, and then come up with fun names too, And so
that's
I'm not a
good.
I'm
Yeah.
not a diagnosis. I am like my superhero version
Yeah.
of me, I mean, Adele does this on stage, Beyoncé did that on stage. It's like they step into their
Sasha
higher
Fierce.
alter ego self. And so
Yeah.
this was such a great nugget. I'm so wow, thank you.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a great nugget from you too, with, like, the alcoholic and the I'll just say one thing about that, which is, like, that's a big part of becoming unhypnotized is, like, that becoming unhypnotized from your diagnosis.
Totally. And it's just it is crazy. I know. I was bulimic when I was,
Like, imagine if you had to
16
carry
to
that on
19,
for
but I
life.
don't yeah, I don't identify
Like
as that. If somebody like,
like
got through cancer, are they like, "Oh, I'm a cancer victim my whole life?" It's like, "No, I'm moving on. I don't they don't wanna hold on to that energy. You wanna evolve, How can your soul and spirit and consciousness ever, fly to where it's supposed to be if you're in this anchor of negativity in this
yeah,
box? It
it's like
can't."
fiat it's a fiat medicine. I think of it as fiat medicine.
Mhm. Yeah, it really is. Let's talk about
Yes.
number 4. So number 1 is awareness, number 2 consumption model, number 3 professional, number 4 is relationships. Let's talk about how can we unhypnotize ourselves through, um,
Ooh.
rearranging perhaps relationships.
Ooh, this is a tough, sticky one, you know, because all relationships are different
Yeah,
and we're inevitably going to be triggered in soul relationships, especially. I believe our relationships are our teachers.
yeah.
And so sometimes it is hard to know, like, is this better for me to move on from, or is there something still here for me to learn?
Mm, totally, dude. Oh,
I
you nailed it
know.
right there. Shit.
I know. I wish
But
I could
wait,
just
what if
say,
this is my teacher
I
to be more compassionate and more patient?
I know. I wish I could just be that person and say, "Leave, go where you're loved." But I look at everything as evolutionary, and relationships can be so evolutionary, and
Yeah.
they can really shine a light on parts of ourselves that want freedom.
It's true. Well, and you had said earlier, just, with, being hypnotized and scammed, and you were like, oh, if I didn't get that experience, I wouldn't have got this lesson. Obviously, every
Yeah,
lesson, everything's a lesson and a blessing, right? And
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
but there's a point at which some relationships become dangerous and toxic, to our soul and to our mind and to our mental health and everything. And so
really.
do you have any kind of advice for people who are like, at what point in, boundary setting in relationships is it a time to say adios?
Mm. I think the most important thing is to just remember that if you have to push it or force it, to just let it be.
Mm,
I think it's really important to not have a lack mindset around relationships, because it can be really easy to not want to lose the person, and then you lose yourself
Yeah.
and your own,
Yeah.
yeah, we've all done it. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone I know, at least myself many times have done it,
Yeah.
and I think that especially when you're in, I think we maybe talked about this too, like you're in that lonely stage of like you
Yeah.
awakened and now you're facing things and you're seeing what people don't fit into the life you are wanting to create for yourself and where you're going.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of compassion for ourselves needed, but I think the trust piece is massive. Like, I know for myself, I really just, I think my whole life, if I really look back, I never fit in.
Right.
Never
Me
fit
neither.
in. And I never felt like this is my community until now, how I feel in Calgary,
Yeah.
with
Good.
my friends in Bitcoin and even other friendships I've been making. But because I'm able to come from this place of like wholeness, in a sense, like I know that life will give me whatever I need. And if that's just needing to be alone and feel my feelings for 10 years, I guess that's what it is.
Yeah. It's
That's an
I think
exaggeration, but
being comfortable being alone is very different than being lonely, right? We, can differentiate loneliness versus being alone. I love being alone a lot. Like, I value my time alone. Sometimes it's too much. Obviously, COVID was a nightmare, and I think some of that residual, uh separation, has lingered on a lot of us, and I think it's altered the way that we relate with each other, because instead of, being able to just, oh, I'm just going to go to the park or go do this thing with somebody, it's like, oh, I had to get in that habit, that pathway in my mind of like, oh, I'm just going to text and I can't go see them. And so now I think a lot of us are defaulting, not everybody, of course, but some people default a little bit, especially the younger generation, with digital, digital, digital. And so
yeah.
that's not like the healthiest connection consistently. Like, you need human touch and connection and all the things. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, I always say I have a deficiency in oxytocin.
yeah, I know. I like hugs. I want
I
more
got a
hugs.
lot. I got it filled up a lot at the conference, so I'm very happy with that. And my friend Katie, she just kept giving me the oxytocin dose.
Those.
Yeah. Just but I think that you probably have, like, some really good insight into this too, because when we do get to that point of realizing, like, let's be honest, sometimes the belief system is just too different, especially when you start really waking up to, what's really going on, in a sense of like the parts of the world that are not for our health and abundance, and you can't unsee it, and you're orange pilled, or you're awakened, or you're like you've leveled up in consciousness. I think that it does sometimes make us have to have the courage to like just leave old friendships behind.
Yeah, I agree. And it's sad, and I've gone through that. I think many people I have on the show, I ask them how the relationships have changed because of Bitcoin, and
Hmm.
it's the
Okay,
same
yeah.
thing. It's just kind of like we start to get more gravity towards those of us who are aligned and thinking a certain way and operating a certain way, and other people, it's like, we love you. We're here. We're not, you're always welcome to join the fun, but
Yeah.
you don't have to keep getting dragged back into the old paradigm too much, because it doesn't feel good. It's like, it just feels like, why am I spending my time here? There was a woman I was listening to, I forget, I think, gosh, who was it? Lewis Howes was interviewing her on the School of Greatness, and she used to be a Secret Service agent. She's a Greek woman. I
Mhm.
want to say her name's like Eva something. Beautiful, beautiful woman, but very, very like, just like fucking badass warrior woman, but just like, she's a new mom and everything. And she wrote this great book, but she really talks about your circle of influence and the people that are around you. And she's like, that's the number one thing. Like, it will poison you and bring you down if you are around toxic humans
Mhm.
who, don't, see what you're up to, or if they try to cut you down or insult you in any way or any of it. It's just kind of like, eh, get that out of your life, because all that does is drama. And so she was just talking about how the vetting mechanism for the Secret Service is so fierce. Hi, Katie. Um,
Katie.
that it's so hardcore because they understand like one person can take down a whole operation, it can mess up stuff, and people's lives are at stake. And so you can't have, negative Nelly over here complaining about X, Y, or Z, and so she
Mhm,
was very much like, if I
mhm.
could get that into people's heads, because Lewis was asking like the three most important things that she got out. One was just like the people that are around you influence you so much, so much. It doesn't mean you're not going to love your mom and dad. It doesn't mean you're not going to have love for
Yeah,
these folks if you're shifting gears into a new crew, but you have to be like so discerning because of the energy, like they're vampires, and they don't even mean it sometimes. Like I have people in my life who I love dearly, and I'm like, we have to have small doses, of these folks because it's
yeah,
just like, oh, I get Velcroed into their nonsense. And I'm like, fuck, that took me 3 hours to kind of take a
yeah,
energy shower and
that
cleanse myself.
that's like a good point because right off the top, you said how you love the Bitcoin space because it's non-competitive. And,
Mhm.
my friend Katie that she lives in Victoria, so we connected really for the first time in person, like, for a long amount of time. We've only ever met one time other in person, and we met synchronistically online.
Nice.
But she's like that's a perfect example of how, like, we're both like Capricorns, and so we're both ambitious, and especially in business. And, I didn't even feel for a second like, oh, I don't want her in this space because, like, I know that everyone, like, it's really the first time, and I know I'm generalizing. I'm sure that we're human and we can all have moments of like jealousy or whatever it is, but I'm not talking about being human. I'm talking about like genuinely wanting the thriving and success of everyone because we recognize that as the thriving and success for our world.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin is full of that. Like, I have been in many spaces, entrepreneurship wise, women focused spaces, and I have
Mhm.
never felt like the same like, what is it? Reciprocity?
Reciprocity.
Reciprocity?
Reciprocity. Yes.
Reciprocity
Mhm.
that, like, because I've always wanted that success for others, but I, for the first time, feel it back.
Yes. Oh,
Like,
wow. I love hearing that,
yeah.
Heather. Oh my gosh,
Like,
because
seriously, I'm just like, I'm outing myself maybe of just, like, how I feel about lots of spaces I've been in,
yeah.
but it's like for the first time, I feel like I knew I needed to receive, but now I can actually receive.
And it's authentic
Yeah,
receiving. It's not like there's
yeah,
something like, "Oh, you owe me something," or I did you a favor." I completely resonate with that as true
yeah.
because I feel like there's so many people in this space, and I'm the same way. I'm like I am a spiritual cheerleader. Like, I am like, "Rah,
Yeah,
rah,
you
let's go. You can do it. Here we go. La, la, la." Like, that's my jam. I love it. Being a DJ, I get to do that, when I was a sailing charter boat person, when I do women's groups, when I do circles.
Yeah.
It's wonderful, but, like, having that reciprocity, like you just said, just because it's just and because you're fucking awesome too, you deserve it and
Yeah,
you've earned it, but it's like,
yeah.
it's such a cool feeling,
'Cause,
and
like,
it's
I
just like,
noticed it kicking in where I was like, "Oh, do I have to be cautious?" Because, like, I've had people, like, just steal parts of my business or,
yeah,
like, that I was, like, wanting to work together to uplift. And then I realized, like, well, 1, I'm being more my authentic self, so I
yeah,
have people in my life that, like, love me for me.
yeah,
And so I do take responsibility for what I was part of creating because I was also programmed in this kind of like, well, people pleasing, kind of scratch my back, I'll scratch your back,
totally.
fiat business model.
Yeah,
So I take responsibility for that. And then once I unhypnotize myself from that, now I have people in my life that not only love me for me, and I don't have to put any sort of a mask or any kind of a thing on. But not only that, it's like we want this success for each other.
totally. Well, and that's the game theory, obviously, of Bitcoin, right? And so I think it's changed our consciousness because when Bitcoin wins, we all win, right? And so when we're all moving that boulder forward, it's really important. I think a lot of people are used to the zero sum game of sports or of
Mm,
business, and it's
mhm.
kind of like, oh, if I'm going to take these customers away, that means you don't get any kind of thing. And it's like, no, the more people like all of our goals, I think, as Bitcoiners, and to me, certainly, and I know you too, as a healer and a love warrior, it's like we want everybody lit up, activated, and we want everybody using Bitcoin, and we want everybody living their highest unhypnotized
Yeah.
love warrior selves, right? And so it's not about, oh, us versus them. It's just like it's a big giant super we, and I think that's very, and it's not to say that there's not competition in business, because there should be, but it should be because we're all trying to do the best we can, not because we're
Yeah.
trying to squash someone else and hurt
Yeah,
them,
it makes
and
us better.
yeah.
It makes us better, not, like, worse. No, I think that's, like, that's such a great conversation,
It's
honestly.
yeah, it's
Like,
so important, and I
yeah,
know, unfortunately, I think a lot of it's fiat. It's a fiat operating system, right? And so let's talk about number 5.
number
So,
5.
relationships, we're gonna let it be sometimes, let things go, and
Yeah,
go with the
yeah.
flow, and be
Like, be
magnetized towards
conscious about who you choose to have in your life, right? Be
totally.
conscious about who you choose to have in your life.
Totally. Good,
Yeah.
good stuff. And so number 5 is, we were talking about cleansing, and I just said like, oh, if you're
Mhm.
around the wrong people, or, negative Nellies, vampires, energy vampires, sometimes it takes hours to kind of get that energy, that mood, that vibration out. And so let's talk about cleansing as one of the 5 ways to unhypnotize your mind, and so we can be free.
Okay, I mean, you are what you eat. So, I am definitely gonna be doing some episodes about this on the podcast, like food, medicine, like actually what you eat
Yeah.
and what you consume in your body, and then, of course, cleansing yourself of, oh, we could just get into so much, but just like of the toxicity in the sense of like what you might believing about yourself or life that's making you feel bad.
Mm. Right, cleansing our old beliefs that are
Yeah,
holding us down. That's so
right.
important.
Because even if we believe like, people don't want my success, that's like toxicity,
It is. It's a
you
program.
know?
It is.
Yeah,
Every little belief, everything that we say is code. It's little
yeah,
codes that we're putting in, whether they're
yeah.
getting stored back here in our subconscious or wherever the subconscious lives, or if it's at the top of mind. It's
And like I
so
would have to
important.
say, yeah, and I do have to say emotions because I think that the best way to cleanse is like just let yourself feel how you feel, but just really be cautious about like what you're deciding about how you feel and instead try to with as much non-judgment. And this is like a tip only usually my clients, really get. But
Ooh.
this is like number one tip for like any new client that I have, which is just as much as you can, let yourself feel how you feel. And even if your mind starts to judge it or try to find out why, just come back to feeling how you feel.
Mhm.
Just let yourself feel because if you let yourself feel, you'll cleanse. You won't
Yeah.
be running from your feelings. You won't be trying to numb your feelings. You won't be trying to think, "Oh my god, I got to do better. I got to hustle. I should have did this. I should have did that. I got to figure out this. I've got to learn this. I have to do all of these things before I can buy Bitcoin." you know, Because this is the way that our stressed mind works. We pile on. Like, I'll have so many people say, Heather, help me do this, this, and this so then I can lose weight. And I said, well, what if you could just lose weight without doing all of those things? Would you be okay with that?
They're like, really?
Yeah. So that's the first on hypnosis we got to do, right? Stop
Wow.
thinking we got to do all these things. And so I think cleansing, if you're doing it on your own, especially, is just let your feelings exist,
Yeah.
let yourself feel, and you'll get your own wisdom
Let yourself
from that
feel to
time.
heal, baby.
Yeah,
Reveal the feel to heal. That's what I say. And
yes,
so
know it.
well, a lot of times we spend so much time trying to avoid, like, the avoidant attachment style and the avoidant behavior with a lot of people is very prominent, and it's just that's a coping mechanism. It's a coping mechanism, like, oh, I don't have time to feel emotional today because I've got a big
Yeah,
meeting, or I got to do this, whatever. And it's like some of us, we just keep putting that under the rug and under the rug and under the rug, and then all of a sudden the rug's really big, and then we snap and we have this big giant life shit shows, and
yeah.
so it's
Yeah,
very important to do maintenance regularly. It's not like, oh, I'm going to do my yearly cleanse. It's like, no, you have a daily practice of energy hygiene. I like to call it like
that's a good way to say it.
we all brush our teeth every day. Like, why wouldn't you brush your energy and your negativity and the things that might be, stuck on you like a little burr, a little sticker pricker thing when you go hiking? Like, you don't want to let those things accumulate because it does start to turn into this bigger problem that it could have just gotten handled as if you were brushing your teeth each day, And so, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my favorite areas that I've been doing a ton of work in right now is the psychosomatic, like the metaphysical reasons behind physical illnesses. And it's
Yeah.
insane, like, how many people get upset at me for suggesting it's possible. Like, it's crazy.
Louise
How,
Hay, hello. I mean, her whole thing, Louise
like,
Hay?
yeah, of course,
Of
that's
course.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's like where it's began. Louise Hay was such a trailblazer. And that's why I love that self-healing conversation. And that's actually what I'm going to bring more to the panel at the conference in Calgary. This
Yeah,
is
perfect
exactly,
segue. Let's go
yeah.
into the Sovereign Minds Conference.
Well, this is exactly what I'm going to bring to the panel. I shouldn't say exactly, but that's an element
Cool.
of like what I'm going to bring to my panel, but also that understanding of how the mind works so
Yeah.
that your freedom, like while Bitcoin, of course, and different healing modalities can give you freedom, freedom really starts in the mind.
Yep.
And
Free
part of
your mind, the
that, and
rest will
the rest will
follow.
follow. We're like of this era. And well, and like that whole you can heal yourself, like
Yep.
Louise Hay, heal your life.
Yep.
And this idea that like the wisdom of your symptoms and your conditions is the direct door to your healing.
Yeah.
Like when we start to look at symptoms as like healing reactions or healing information for healing,
Yeah.
it becomes less about diagnosis and disease and more about, um, I mean, just perfect health.
Well, you think about like you don't have like a giant panic attack when the check engine light comes on your dashboard. You're like, "Oh, something's going on. I need to pay attention. I need to give this system here, this car system some attention and we need to go figure something out and give it like supplement something or get rid of something or whatever we have to do." And so
Yeah.
there's not some like, "Oh no, the car, we got to get rid of it. Like it's damaged forever." It's
Yeah.
like, "No, we're going to
Or
address
like
the
it's
thing."
gonna have this problem forever.
Totally. No, it's like, no, it's fixable. So I think, yeah, it's such a good point. So let's talk about Sovereign Minds Conference a little bit. I'll share
Let's
the
talk
screen.
about it, and thank you so much. Yeah, let's give a little time because it's happening in this, like, high vibe Bitcoin
Woohoo!
community in Calgary,
Bitcoin mania.
and I mean, it really does bring together visionaries and thought leaders who are pushing boundaries in finance, health, consciousness, and autonomy. There's
Love it.
tons of great speakers. You can definitely keep scrolling. We've got, like, some Canadian legends on these panels, and
Wow.
yeah.
I know. This is great. Oh my gosh, you
Yeah,
guys.
like we're just so pleased with the lineup.
Yeah.
And we have people like in the freedom community, like Marty up north or Corey Morgan. And then we've also got the Bitcoiners like Dave Bradley and Ben Perrin and Art and Dakota, the farming. He was on one of my episodes too, farming and healing. That was really well received. David
Amazing.
Harder's he's psychedelics, and there's a whole psychedelic panel, and just like really look at how all
Amazing.
of these transformative forces are reshaping humanity and society, like at the innate or like intrinsic level of being.
It's so, so important. And I love, gosh, I wish I could come up and do this with
Yeah,
you guys.
same.
It's ultra FOMO here. Um, it's so cool. I know we had a sovereignty summit a couple weeks ago at our friend Ajure's 100-acre yellow barn farm here. And I
Mm,
think it's just such an important thing that a lot of people don't really understand. Like once you start falling down the rabbit hole, obviously of Bitcoin, as we talked about, it's
yeah,
very, you know, you all these new things start to show themselves to like, oh, I guess I got to look at this thing
Totally.
here. And oh, oops, the veil has been removed over here on this
Yeah,
system. And it's all about
yeah,
systems, I think. And so when we're looking at it at that lens, the health and wellness system has been, co-opted by big, chemical companies. They're not there trying to heal you. There's a conveyor
yeah.
belt of let's spray the food, let's give the people cancer, let's give them this thing, and let's keep
Yeah,
rinsing
and
and
then take
repeating
away the
them with the
symptoms so they don't really realize the cause. And you know
no.
what? This conference is actually really affordable. It's only $99 a ticket, but
It's
anyone who
it's
wants can
great.
use my promo code for 40% off.
Oh, wow, what's your promo code? Hold on.
Unhypnotized.
Unhypnotized
Yeah,
here. Okay, cool. Of course it's
yes.
unhypnotized.
So anyone can get 40% off, which is like or it was already affordable at $99, and that's Canadian, so that's like nothing in
Totally.
America.
No, that's great 'cause I think it's isn't it great though? You think about, like, nobody needs permission to go, "We need to go check with the CEO of Bitcoin to do a conference or to do the thing." It's like everybody's like, "Here's an idea, let's go do the thing." And I love it because everyone's not gonna go to a Bitcoin conference, but they might go to a Sovereign Minds conference.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And so that's what's, I think, really fun because you're cross-pollinating. Same thing. Everyone's not going to a Bitcoin for Podcasters conference, but they might lots of people are going to podcasting conferences or music conferences
Well,
or
and it's like the
wellness things,
perfect
and
it's the
so
perfect, you're right, like, because a person that's already seen through, like, the veil of the medical industrial complex, a person that's already seen through the
mhm,
veil of I don't know, there's so many
the
areas.
political
Yeah,
systems,
political
any of it,
systems, food,
–
like, they're, in my opinion, just like it's just like they're waiting for Bitcoin.
they're primed for this,
Like,
yeah, or like the
Bitcoin
homeschoolers,
is like
right?
they're
They're just
gonna
like,
have
"Oh,
a
we don't
love
want our
affair
kids
with
getting."
Bitcoin like I am.
Get that infatuation honeymoon going, girl.
Get that oxytocin.
Oh my god, I love it. I wanna bring up your website now too, Heather, because your website's
I mean, you
beautiful.
can.
Um
My website, it really is just,
I love it. Look at how beautiful
thank
and
you,
radiant you
thank
are. It's
you.
wonderful. Tell people, like, what could they get from working with you and going with Hypno
I
Heather?
mean, the main thing is probably to just, like, have access to the things that I'm doing sort of even outside of my one-to-one work because
Mhm.
I do consults for one-to-one, but it's pretty limited space, to be honest,
Yeah.
and I do, like, training and, like, if practitioners really wanna learn how to work more in the subconscious or, aligned with that way of holding transformational space, like really like sovereign transformational space. That's the new stuff I'm going to be doing. So the main thing is
Mm.
to just like get on my email list
Okay.
because yeah, I'm sure that there's somewhere on there, but it's not super set up for this. Like, this is kind of the new stuff I'm doing. But, like, yeah, you could sign up and get a free resource pack here and, like, start to be on my list. Because that's to me the future of hypnotherapy, but it's also just the future of healing, which is really conscientiously holding transformational space to, like for yourself, also, but like for others, because I really think if as practitioners, change makers, light workers, you go through the door of yourself, like you go through the door of your own self, you're
Mhm.
much more equipped to hold that space for other people. Oh, and there is an audio there too. That's probably the best thing to sign up for because I'm gonna make one for the from the Bitcoin for the Bitcoiners too, and I'll send it out to that list. Yeah,
Oh,
and I do have,
amazing.
like, a
Alright.
special Bitcoin list, but if someone wants to be on that, it's better if they just DM me or yeah, DM me their email because it's, just for the Bitcoiners and the Unhypnotized, podcast. Yeah.
Amazing. I love it. Yeah, so everyone listening, if you're not watching this, go to hypnoheather.com and you can find that. And then sovereignminds.ca is where you guys can sign up for the conference and check that out up in Calgary on
Mhm.
November 16th. Um, and then everybody can find you on X at unhypnotized
Yeah,
BTC or Instagram at hypnoheather. And your Instagram page is
Thank
gorgeous. It
you.
looks really nice. Like, you've got really beautiful style. Like, it's just like when I like, it's funny because my style obviously is big and bold and super, rich rainbowy
Love
colors and
it.
stuff. And yours is very, I mean, yours, it's so pretty and it makes you feel at
Mm.
ease. There's like a nice ease energy, and I love it. And so yeah, it's a
I love it.
beautiful. You have
I
to go
always
check
say,
it
like,
out.
go to Instagram, yeah, if you wanna see myself and my style, and go to X if you wanna hear my thoughts.
Yeah, if you wanna hear my sassiness. It's so true, like, it's funny because, my kids are just like, "Mom, why are you on Twitter? Twitter's so negative and toxic," and it's just like, actually, it depends on who you're subscribed to, of course, if you're just subscribed to a bunch of negative stuff, but it's a town hall. It truly is a town square, a town hall where, you know, if you wish to start a space and have a bunch of people come up and start talking, you can do it at 3 o'clock in the morning. And there's going to be people who want to converse about hypnotherapy or Bitcoin or what's going on in the Middle East or
Totally.
the earth or anything. And like, you can't really do that on these other channels. Instagram, you can have some live stuff, but like, nobody's talking about like the current events and the culture and the things that people are scared to
Well,
talk
and even if
about,
they
you
are, they're
know?
so censored, and you can't just have the
Yeah,
same, like, authentic conversations, so
exactly.
I'm with you. I think it's so fun to just be able to even just talk some shit.
Totally, and not feel like you're gonna get, deplatformed, and it's like, I was just on the phone
Yeah,
yesterday with Google because I tried to run a quick ad, and they're like, "Y the word Bitcoin can't be in anything, and you have Bitcoin on your website, so we can't do YouTube ads, and we can't do Google ads." And I was like, "'Cause I have the word Bitcoin?" And
smart.
I kinda knew that Bitcoin is censored everywhere, but I'm just like, that's just ridiculous,
It's not a
especially with the
slur.
mainstream here in the United States.
Yeah.
Like, hi, it's like BlackRock and all these company and Fidelity, everybody's got Bitcoin. So now we can't have that. It's just such a it's bizarro land. But anyway, so
That
any
is
final
it.
thoughts
It's
on
not
the 5 ways to unhypnotize ourselves and wrapping this
mm.
up? Thank you so much for taking time, Heather. This has been super insightful as always. Any final words for people out there who might be struggling, who might be a little bit intimidated to, look for some alternative ways to get their mind unhypnotized?
Yeah. Yeah, I think number 1 is just be very gentle with yourself, because
Mm,
it is hard. It is hard when we're starting to just realize what we thought might be true isn't true, and a lot of the world doesn't have our best interest at heart. And it's heartbreaking. And so I think that if you're at that point in the journey, just be very gentle with yourself and see if you can find communities or spaces or places or people where you can feel comforted, even if that comfort is from Mother Nature herself. And then I think the second thing is, being spending time in silence, or just even in relaxation with yourself, can really help your nervous system slow down, and it can give you more of like the connection and the wisdom to the light. And so I guess, like, this is maybe vague, and you can probably add to this, but just seek the light.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Be the love and seek the
be the
light.
love,
Yeah.
and to be love,
Be the love and seek the
Yeah,
light. It's
yeah,
so true, and it's really, really, and you can microdose yourself with
yeah.
that. It doesn't mean you need to go do it for an hour and meditate or an hour, it's like literally for 15 seconds, you can shift your situation, you can shift your mind, you can shift your vibe, and then it's like, if it feels good, do it for another 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Keep stacking that. Stack that love, stack those good vibes, like we like to stack
And join
sats. Let's stack love.
community. Yeah, stack sat, stack
Yeah.
love. Join the community. Like, you have a beautiful community, don't you?
We all do,
Yeah,
yeah,
like,
like, it's just
join the
like
community of
it's
people that, like,
yeah.
help raise your vibration.
big time. And again, thank you so much, Heather. This has been, of course, always enlightening as usual. And I'm going to plug an event that I am doing to raise your
Ooh.
vibration this weekend. Um, I am doing just a small little group with maybe 10 people or so. I've got room for a few more folks. Um, we're going to be working on designing our Love Warrior Code and designing a daily practice, because as love warriors and light workers, it's really, really important that we have something that we can turn to each day that will fuel us, that will cleanse us, that's in alignment with our big vision, our big mission. So it's kind of like doing a big vision board on steroids, doing it with people that you love, and then now executing on it. So it's going to be a really fun weekend, and it's free. It's a value for value. And so my only ask is that if people want to do it, you show up, you do the work. Give me a little feedback and review so I can keep refining it and making it better, because I really want to turn this into something that's I don't know how I'm going to do this, but it's got to be something hopefully at scale, possibly all value for value. We'll see how that works, but it's going to be an experiment. And if you're going through a big transition in life, especially, this is perfect for you. If you're going through a breakup, if you've lost a career, if you're moving, anything, these are really great times to kind of take a moment for yourself and tune in, drop in, and start to work on your me HD, as I like to call it. And so that's going to be really cool. And then the other thing we've got coming up on November 2nd, we're going to be doing a Bitcoin for Domestic Violence Summit. Um, and this is a very important summit. And we're just starting to get some speakers to talk. A lot of people don't know that you can use Bitcoin to escape, whether it's authoritarian regime of your government or perhaps a domestic situation that is unsafe. And so the people that we're going to talk about how to use Bitcoin very safely to get out of situations. If you're not using it right and you get caught, you could die, unfortunately, if your partner is not happy with you trying to escape. So Linda Parker from Women in Distress is going to be co-hosting this with me, and it's going to be a really, really cool summit. So mark your calendars, and it's going to be
I
great.
can put
So
that link
yeah,
too. I'll put that link under our episode because we talked, the
perfect.
episode on Unhypnotize with you, that's what we talked about. So I'll just put that link in that episode show notes too for anyone that just comes across it. Mhm.
Yeah, that would be great. And
Yeah.
yeah, just even if it's just djvaleriebeloved.com/event, it'll be there. It's
Okay.
easy to go. That's an easy link. So I'm so excited. So thank you again. And you guys make sure you go check out Heather at Hypno Heather, go to the Sovereign Minds Conference and use Hypnotized as your code and get 40% off, and make sure you go have some fun. And again, thanks so much, Heather, for all the work you're doing. I'm so happy to know you. And thanks again, Dave Bradley. Woohoo.
Yeah.
And everybody who's listening, keep rocking and keep breathing, keep focusing on that light in the future. Remember, be the light, be the love, and let's do this together. So until next time, everyone, peace, love, and warm aloha. Woohoo. Thanks.